Welcome to How to Draw and Paint Backgrounds. I'm excited that you're taking this course because you're an artist that wants to draw cool backgrounds, whether it be for comics or for illustration or concept art or just beautiful paintings. You're the reason I'm creating this course and because many of my students have requested it. If you're a beginner, you will learn step by step how to draw great looking backgrounds. Hey, even if you're already super proud of your backgrounds, after this course, you'll be able to draw them on a whole new level. You can do this. I know how you feel. I used to feel the same way, like I can just never draw good backgrounds, interiors or exteriors, etc. But once I learned a few key points, I was able to draw good-looking backgrounds. And you can too. Here are just a few of those key points that you're going to learn in this course. Making perspective easy, composition, which is very important to backgrounds. How to use form to make your background stand out and pop out and look more 3D. And we'll also use and learn how to use a free program called Google SketchUp. Believe it or not, the comic book artist that draws for Daredevil uses Google SketchUp for his backgrounds. Well, who is this guy, you might be thinking? Well, I'm a top art instructor here at Udemy with over 10,000 students. I'm also the best-selling author of a book on Amazon called How to Draw Awesome Figures. So hey, follow along with me by enrolling in this course and learn how to draw and color backgrounds like you never have been able to before. I'll see you inside the course. In this lesson, the first thing we're going to learn about composition is how to place elements within your picture. So here's a little exercise I want you to do before you even get started on learning anything about placing objects. Take these 4 objects, well technically 3 objects, and place them inside of this scene here. Now these objects can be any size you want them to be. The only thing is that it has to be clear is that this guy's in the foreground and he has shot this guy. So this guy is obviously somewhere further in the background than the guy in the foreground. The tree could be anywhere you want it to be. Although based on the color it is right now, if this guy is black, he's in the foreground, then this tree is probably going to be somewhere more in the background. But you can still try to place it inside this image. You can change the color of it if you want to. Now you can do this with pencil and paper, or with paints, or with Manga Studio as I'm using here, or with Photoshop or any other digital program that you feel you want to use. If you're using a pencil and paper, obviously you're just going to be sketching out quick little thumbnails of each different one. The tree doesn't have to look just like this. Just make sure that, it's like that's the idea of a tree, and kind of just shade it in. Again, if you're using a digital program, you can take the object itself, the JPEG, and then you can change its color if you want to. To do that, all you have to, most programs have to do is take the color picker tool here, or the paint bucket tool, sorry, and just take the object and fill it in with whatever color you want. And it's going to fill in pretty closely to what you need it to be. The idea is just to get, the color there, but try to first place them as the colors they are. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and give you time to do that. Push pause and go ahead and take the time to arrange this into the picture the way that you want. If you're using pencil and paper, just go ahead and sketch it out real quick a couple different ways and figure out what works good, what feels good to you. And then we'll go through a couple different things that definitely don't look good, and then a way to kind of solve the problem the way it does look good. And then we'll go more into, as we learn more about composition, this will all make a lot more sense in the end of the composition part. And just so you know, I have supplied these as separate images that you can go ahead and download and use. Alright, so hopefully you've done the exercise. How well do you think you did? Let's go ahead and look at a couple different things that you could do. One thing you can do is you can take the tree, and we can place it, let's say, somewhere kind of in the background a little bit like this, and maybe make it larger to where it just kind of goes off into space like that in the background. Something like so. You can even change it, make it skinnier if you want. In this case, I'd have to go to free transform. Now keep in mind, this is all going to be within this gray area of the frame here. One thing you could do is make a layer that's above all these layers and then fill it in with white or your background color. I'm going to go ahead and choose my background color. And then you can take the selection and make a selection around the gray and then go to invert selected area. Most of these things, I'm not teaching how to use Manga Studio here. This is if you're just working this way. If you're working with pencil and paper, just sketch inside of the area. Just draw a rectangle and sketch inside of it. If you're using Paint, same thing. If you're using Photoshop, you should know how to use the program that you're using. But if you want to use Manga Studio, go to Selection and Invert Selection, and then go ahead and fill it in. What that's going to do is make everything invisible that's not inside of the frame here. And that's just to show us what it looks like. I can turn that off and on. I can also turn the opacity down if I wanted to, just to kind of move the pieces around. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off and on as I work. Right, next we'll take our guy, and let's say he's off over here and he's in front of the tree, so just move the layers. Of course, this will be much easier. I'm going to go ahead and fill him in with white really quickly. Take the paint bucket tool here and white, and we'll just kind of fill him in here. Doesn't have to be perfect. He's going to be in front of the tree, and let's say he's kind of off outside the frame here. Most of him is outside the frame. And he's something like so. We can actually take him and turn him as well. You can turn the objects and all that kind of stuff. It's just mainly these have to be the objects that you're using. Then we'll take this guy here. We'll put him in the top layer because he's in the foreground. And we probably should make him larger since he's going to be really here like so. And I kind of want just the top of him, and maybe I want my entire image to be a little bit smaller or whatever, but something like so. And we'll turn this on. So this composition doesn't work for several reasons. One, we can't really tell what's happening. We have this guy in the foreground which looks fine, but the guy in the background, we're not even sure if they're on the same ground plane. We haven't really done in perspective to make sure they're on the same ground plane. We'll go over that a little bit later. We can see the guy here, we can't really tell what's happening to him. He's so much out of the frame that we can't see that he's really been shot. And then also the tree, it serves an okay, but it kind of has some weird overlapping. There's a lot of overlapping going on here, which is fine and can actually create that illusion of depth. But in this case, you have some things that are just overlapping too much. The gun's just overlapping the man too much. It hides kind of who he is, what's going on. He kind of hides the tree too much. It's hard to tell what it is. And then the hat kind of runs into the line here. It's called a tangent. We don't want that. It's off-putting. You have this tangent line here. You have a tangent line with the other guy's hat in this branch here. Kind of a tangent line almost with a tree and the guy and this whole entire background here and part of the gun. So this composition doesn't work. So if you came up with something similar to this, probably not the best way to arrange these. The main point of this exercise is to figure out the best way to arrange objects in a scene. It'll make much more sense after we learn everything about composition. Now another way you could have arranged these objects, let's go ahead and do that here. Let's say you had taken this guy and you put him more in the middle up here somewhere. And then you took your character and you kind of pull him off screen. We kind of want him the same size here. And he's kind of like this. And this character is kind of like here. Then you have your tree, and you decide this time you want to make your tree much bigger and taller. So now we're going to go to Edit, Transform, Free Transform. Now again, if you're using pencil and paper, all you have to do is just make little quick sketches. Now if you did something like this, well, it kind of works and it kind of doesn't. Let's go ahead and make the tree, let's pretend like it was taller and goes down further. I guess I could go ahead and stretch it. Mainly I just don't want the guy in the tree touching. Now at first it seems like it might work okay, but the guys are on very different ground planes, it seems like. If we were to do the perspective, he almost seems like he's floating in the air. Another problem with this arrangement is that they all compete for the scene. The guy, both guys in the tree kind of all take up the same amount of space on the screen, and so it's like, well, who's really the dominant figure? You kind of want a dominant figure within your scene. We'll go more into that later. Another way you could arrange these is to say, maybe kind of keep the guy in the same place, but you have the tree, and maybe want to move it more, like let's say over here. Move the guy maybe just a little bit over more. And then we'll have our guy that's being shot over here like so. Now this doesn't quite work either. Then we can take the man and even put him more into the shot. Maybe make him a little bit smaller so he can fit a little bit better. There we go. So a couple things happen with this composition. One, the tree looks too important. And two, the gun and the tree have a tangent line. You don't want this to happen where you have like the end of the gun is running straight flush with the tree itself. The objects are running together. You want overlapping. To fix that problem, you could take the tree and move it over just a little bit like this, but we still have the problem that the tree just seems too important. It's so big, it seems very important in this particular composition. But still, it's an okay composition. Again, the tree seems to compete too much as the main character. We can fix this by taking the tree and kind of pulling it more into the background. And then maybe taking the guy and having some overlapping, but not have a weird overlapping or tangent. And maybe bring in our hero here. Well, maybe he's the hero, maybe he's the bad guy. Let's go ahead and put him more into the foreground now. Make him a little bit smaller. So something about like so. Take the guy that's been shot, kind of bring him. I don't want this guy too much like that. Might work if I even made the image a little bit whiter. Then we'll take the tree, kind of put it off in the background like that. Now it's not competing so much with the image. And now we have a pretty good, probably one of the best scenarios we can get with using just these particular pieces. Now you can't make the actual size of the image different, so you can't make it an actual longer landscape type of image. It has to be up and down, it has to be a vertical image, and has to be pretty much this size. And if you take these objects here and you make them any size you want, but they have to be these objects, and draw them, this composition works pretty good. I mean, it's probably the best we can get, at least. The main point we're trying to do is we're trying to make the action clear, and we want our main object of focus to be the dominant figure in this picture. We could even make him even more dominant by maybe making him come out a little bit more, maybe making him a little bit bigger, but we still have to make sure the action is clear. So the guy in the background has to probably be a little bit smaller now in order to kind of fit him and make it clear what he is, what's happening, and maybe rotate him the other way around, like so. So now it's clear. Now the story makes sense to us. We can see the story, everything makes sense, we can read everything. The tree's not competing for the dominance. Now we have the dominant figure here that's doing the shooting or has done the shooting. We have the figure in the background that has gotten shot, or that has been shot, and then we have the tree in the background. So as a basic composition, this would actually work. Then we can start adding more details, a couple more trees in the background, things like that. Now this seems like, well, what does this have to do with backgrounds exactly? Because when people think of backgrounds, they think of just a background with nothing in it, like without moving things, people and animals and, let's say, vehicles and spaceships and actors. But in fact, that's a whole entire scene. The background is to create the whole entire scene. So here, the background, we have the foreground here, which is the main character. We don't really consider the background, but the guy can be considered part of the background, maybe even midground. But the tree and other trees in the background would be the background. But still, understanding how objects make up a scene is going to help you make your backgrounds better. So this is just part of composition, one aspect of composition. There's many other elements that we'll learn about composition. And when you put them all together, then when you draw your backgrounds, it's going to make that much more sense, and it's going to be that much easier to actually draw your backgrounds. All right, so I'll see you in the next lesson.